Sunday. And if you're not in church, then you better be here because we have a hell of a show for you. But we have to first tell you to jump into the
I hit the button
in the rotation. You're at the right place. Although I should be at 1714 East 7th Street in Ybor City, where it all began. I'm not because my car costs too much to get fixed, so it's still sitting there. It's being held for ransom.
I didn't realize that you were gonna like stutter on the intro like that, and I hit the button.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, it's Sunday, and first off, for you guys and over at the Emerald Cup, fuck you. I'd love to be there, but I can't. You know. Hope you're having a damn good time. Hope you met every damn trapper and plug was out there, and you get blitzed to beyond belief, because that's what our program is all about. No, seriously, we had a damn good week, interesting week, whatever you want to call it. For those people who have been either at the Emerald Cup and can't remember what happened yesterday, or you were just in a cave, Britney Griner was released. And I am so shocked that there are people who actually came out and said, how dare you release that poor innocent girl? I mean, seriously, guys, there are all these talking points are coming out. Chris, I'm sure you've heard a lot of them. One of them saying that we're equating drug use to arms dealership.
Whatever.
Some kind of screwy ass logic like that.
Well, hold on, Gary, because if you recall, during the Bush administration, smoking weed was tantamount to funding terrorism. You remember that PSA from the Homeland Security Department. So, the fact that there are right wingers out there who can make that leap that Evel Knievel couldn't make is not shocking to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if it was a white guy that was traded, there would be no complaints.
Well, no, that's actually one of the complaints, is that there's a white guy who wasn't traded. There's a former U.S. Marine who's been detained for cannabis, and his own family has come out and condemned President Trump, because President Trump made the tweet. It's like, what about this guy? And their family like, well, he got arrested during your administration, and for 2 years you did jack shit to get him out. So why are you talking shit now?
So I'm justified in saying that because she's a black woman. She's getting
not only black,
she's black, she's gay, and she did not stand up for the national anthem. As far as they could have left her in the gulag for as far as half this country is concerned.
Oh, so in other words, she celebrates diversity. She utilized her First Amendment rights, and those are terrible things.
Yeah, right. Hey. And she smokes CBD. She vapes.
Yeah, and she smokes CBD.
That's a crucial thing. She's a drug addict. That God, I can't even.
Okay.
So let's break it down though. Let's break down this trade as if we're analyzing on NFL Sunday. A trade. So she was traded for Victor Bout, who, for those of you who don't know, if you know anything about popular culture, Nicolas Cage did a movie called Lord of War, and that character was based on this guy that she was traded for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they traded her for the Lord of War, or the Merchant of Death, as they like to call him.
Yeah, you gotta love those kind of titles, because at one point in time he could have gotten out of prison and continued to do the crap that he was doing, but things have changed. He doesn't have any of the connections he had before. He is no longer on the top of his game. He's on the bottom of his game and have to start all over again, unless they hand him leads and they'll just tell him, go out and deliver this newspaper or some crap like that. The bottom line is that Victor Bout is essentially impotent compared to where he was before. So that's one thing that I'm sure that they took into account.
Well, they also asked him, what would he have done with the whole Ukraine war? And he was like, I would have ran guns to Ukrainians. so him getting traded, maybe there's something to it. We'll see. I'd say this much, President Biden, obviously it's been a long time since he's traded baseball cards as a kid. Yeah, I would have definitely threw in a couple Marines and a rock band in addition to Britney. I just feel like, as far as the things go, yes, she should be freed. Yes, nobody should be arrested for cannabis possession in any country, if you will. I mean, in certain countries, like the UAE, cannabis can get you up to 30 years, if not the death penalty. So, always, if you're going to travel, Americans, please look at the travel advisory. Please look at the rules and the laws in those countries, especially if you're a cannabis user. You don't want to get caught up in a unnecessary situation you don't need to be in.
Yeah, people ask why didn't they release Mark Fogel, because he was caught with drugs too. Well, for one thing, he was caught with 17 grams of concentrate in cartridges that he brought in there with him. That's number one. Number two, he wasn't even on the table. They never even brought his card to the table either. So you can't trade a card that's not on the table to be traded with. And that's what it came down to. And as far as our fair Marine there, who will eventually get released, once again, they said you get Britney and we get Crow or nothing. That was what was put down there. And so we had an American citizen unjustly sent to a very harsh, cold labor camp. I have had relatives who died in the labor camps in the gulags. They're not fun places.
We try to make levity of these situations because they are terrible situations. And the fact is that maybe her team should have waited 2 more months. She'd have came out the beast and just dominated next offseason. But, I mean, there's no better offseason training than a Russian labor camp, right?
Absolutely. But this is not the first trade. It's not the last. Not going to be the last one. But don't make hay as if we're saying, yeah, a CBD cartridge is the same thing as it is, just bullshit. So with all due respect, we want to get everybody out, and we will try to get everybody out.
Well,
I think even a Marine would say, get the civilian out first.
Yeah, that is true, Gary. And the other thing is looking at, in the grand scheme of all this, how will this weigh on future actions around cannabis in this country? Because if we're willing to trade international arms dealers for American citizens to get them out of jail for weed, what about the 60-some thousand American citizens sitting in jail for weed right now across the various states? Let's free them all.
It does make me feel like something big is on the horizon. Like I've definitely not felt like marijuana was going to be legalized for quite some time. But I mean, it makes me feel with what Biden just did, and the fact that we're trading people to get Britney out from Russia, it just makes me feel like that presidential administration might be a little favorable for it. There might be some more things on the horizon, maybe. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about that. Since Biden's been in office, he did sign an executive order to, essentially allow people in the DC area to get their records expunged. But he this week signed a law amending federal rules governing cannabis research and drug development, the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act, which for the first time in 50 years, a president has signed a standalone piece of legislation that loosens federal marijuana prohibitions. Under the new law, the U.S. Attorney General is provided a 60-day timeline to either approve or deny applications from scientists who wish to conduct clinical trials involving the use of cannabis by human subjects.
That's exactly right. And it doesn't involve state laws. It basically is a federal bill, and it's a standalone bill. We didn't have to hook it onto a spending bill like we've had to almost every single thing we've ever gotten forward this year. And we didn't even get that this year because the NDAA left without the Safe Plus Act in there where it should have been. So now we're going to have to see if we can't put it into the omnibus bill, which is a big spending bill that usually comes after the first of the year, which is they have a whole new Congress and a whole new way of thinking, I would suppose. I would have loved to have that done during the lame duck, but not enough lame duck left.
Well, that's a big issue right now, is that, is this lame duck Congress going to get anything done in regards to cannabis? The political answer is no, but that doesn't mean that you can't take the opportunity to push now and try to carry that momentum into the next legislative session. Now, in the next legislative session, there's going to be a different party in control of the House. The Democrats, their majority has been slimmed down by Kristen Sinema from Arizona switching from Democrat to independent. But Chuck Schumer's still going to let her keep her committee assignments. So it looks like she's going to caucus with the Dems on certain issues, probably other ones she won't. But all in all, we have a razor thin majority of both parties in both houses of Congress right now. In a logical environment, it would make sense that with those raised within majorities, people need to work together to actually get something done. But this is America we're talking about. So we will see. Will the next 2 years bode where nothing gets done in this country, or will the next 2 years be an unprecedented 2 years of bipartisan wheeling and dealing that needs to happen in order for both sides to get some of what they want done?
Well, if something happens,
well, as far as the House is concerned, I really think that Hakeem Jeffries can get Republicans on board with some of the various bills. He has that kind of charisma and that kind of pull with other House members that sometimes even Pelosi didn't always have. And plus, he's part of a newer generation, and I think a little brighter thinking, because there are a lot of things that Pelosi would not end up doing, especially when it comes to the situation in regards to cannabis is concerned. She's in the same line as Biden is on a lot of issues, and it's not pro cannabis.
Well, Gary, I'm glad you said that, because in this country we do have a serious age problem with the leadership in our politics. I mean, in America, you have two choices at 75: either run for Congress or go to a nursing home.
Our Capitol has nurses on staff at all times.
You know, I mean, you know, when I saw Pelosi take that knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I'm thinking, how the hell is she gonna get up with them 80-some-year-old knees?
Do yourself a favor when you after the show, go to Google and check out who are the oldest members of Congress and see how damn long that list is. And you'd be amazed as how many people over the age of 70 are still serving.
And if you're a working class or middle class person with disposable income to invest, go to the website and check out what those members of Congress are investing in, and make those same investments and pick you up some points.
And now, by the way, we made some friends during the election period, including Max Frost from Orlando, who is going to be coming back on the show very soon. As soon as he comes up for air, he just finished his weeks of orientation over there.
Shit, he needs to find an apartment first, Gary. He couldn't find an apartment in D.C. Matt, that was headlines.
Yeah, I told him.
Max Frost can't find an apartment in D.C. because he's a 25-year-old with bad credit. Shocker! People with student loans and shit can't get the decent credit. Shocker!
Man's got skin in the game. I told him to give you a call. I said maybe you can look for something over in Chevy Chase or Annapolis for him. I told him to check out Shepherd's Park or forget Foggy Bottom where he was looking, because that's too expensive anyway. And DuPont Circle and all the other places where the other congressmen live, because they already have money. He's just getting into it right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
spent everything he had and everything he didn't have.
Well, what was it?
That's right.
There was a certain senator from Texas named Lyndon B. Johnson who, before he was vice president, he said he entered the White House with $12 in his pocket. He literally put it all on the table. And so,
luckily Lady Bird was well off, though. She owned quite a few radio stations.
Hey, there you go. But Max, shout out to him for doing something historic and going to be representing the people. But it is good to see more members of Congress have working class and real struggles that people have. I mean, how many people in Florida right now, especially in South Florida, have a hard enough time finding an apartment that's within their budget? Especially among teachers, educators, public employees who make less than $50K a year. It's not easy to find affordable housing in Florida right now, let alone, DC and other states. So.
Orlando is one of the few municipal governments in Florida that's doing anything about capping rent right now, because it's gotten outrageous. And of course, a lot of the Disney folks, they live in the area if they can, but most of them are on living in those by the week motels over on 92.
That's crazy. People should make enough money to be able to afford to live in the cities in which they work. And that is something that needs to be addressed in this country. And we talk a lot about cannabis on this show, but the fact is that the struggles of working and middle class Americans, are struggles that everybody can relate to. Most of us are going through that, and that's one of the reasons why a well-regulated cannabis market that doesn't overprice patients out of it is so vital. And that's what we have issues with in this country so often, is that there's overpriced corporate booth out there not providing people affordable access to the medicine that they need. And in just some recent studies that have come out, medical cannabis legalization has been associated with lower rates of opioid use among cancer patients, according to data published in the Journal of JAMA Pharmacology coming out of New York. People at Cornell University Medical College assess the relationship between medical cannabis legalization and opioid-related pain outcomes for adults receiving cancer treatment. And so, if cannabis can help people get off opioids, especially cancer patients, help people live healthier lives, then we need to make it safe and we need to make it affordable as a government, as a people. We don't need a unregulated retail market that is putting profits before patients.
Yeah. So my mother, we got some good news last Monday. My mother was going through chemo, and she actually found out this past Monday that she beat it.
That's awesome.
She beat it. She was supposed to go through 6 rounds of chemotherapy. She found out that the cancer was completely gone before the 4th round. And the doctor went ahead and said, you know what, we don't need to do the last 2 rounds.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and just say that she was taking a 1-to-1 ratio of THC and CBD. She wasn't taking like an RSO amount or anything like that. But I have a feeling that it really helped her beat it.
Yeah, you'd be surprised as how many things are surprising to doctors in regards to cannabis is concerned. And we're still learning. I mean, Monique went to the eye doctor this last week, and her doctor told her that the only remaining eye she has, which is blind right now, which had been shrinking, stopped shrinking and started filling back up again, which is remarkable because if it gets to full size again, they can actually go in there and operate again and possibly give her some light vision again. So she's been using the CBG for the glaucoma. I wouldn't doubt that's part of the reason why things are starting to turn around now.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish all the best for your mom.
I mean, to go into what you guys are talking about, just to justify what you were saying, whether or not the CBD and THC help her beat the actual lymphoma is to be seen. I don't know if that's true. That's just my speculation. But one thing I can definitely tell you is that there's a good number of medications that she didn't feel the need to take, including nausea and sleep medication, just because she was taking the THC and CBD. So regardless of what cannabis can do for cancer, right, there's proof right there that the medicine that these doctors are prescribing aren't as good as THC and CBD, at least for the treatment, at least to help people get through treatment.
Yeah. Well,
adjunct treatment too. Don't forget,
this is more affordable.
I mean, someone once asked me if Tommy Chong was cured his prostate cancer with all the various cannabis products that he was using. Well, here's the thing: he was using those, but he was using 60 other things as well, and he had a colon surgery, so he has to use the bag and all that bit. But the fact is, he did more than just cannabis. And when you're in that particular situation, when you have cancer, if you really want to say, I'm only going to stick with one thing until I'm certain it fails, because when it fails, it can fail you entirely. So you want to throw everything you can at it at one time. That makes it hard on a research basis to figure out what actually worked and what didn't work. So, but hopefully with the new research bill, we'll be able to have clinical studies that are pointed towards certain symptomologies that we can essentially verify all the treatment in regards to ALS, in regards to cancer, in regards to autism, and all the other things that right now are not conditions here in the state of Florida, because there's something like sickle cell anemia as well. Again, not a qualifying condition. If your doctor says, yeah, you need it because of that, you're not going to get your card.
Well, Gary, I find it interesting. The National Institute of Health is curing the first cases of sickle cell, here up in Bethesda, Maryland, at their research hospital. So, the fact that this research bill will open up the opportunity for more clinical research, more trials, I think, can really bring us to where we're trying to get to. I mean, more than just the fact that marijuana and cannabis on a medical basis helps patients. Also, medical cannabis retail access has been associated with lower rates of drug overdose mortality. Investigators at the University of Texas and Arizona State reviewed data from over 50 studies highlighting county level predictors of overdose mortality, and they found that there's an inverse relationship between cannabis retail access and drug overdose mortality rates, according to literature published in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence. So if all things are showing us that safe, reliable access to cannabis lowers overdoses, helps cancer patients, helps people with addiction. The fact that you have these reefer madness folks that when we try to legalize it in any state, there's always those folks pushing for dispensary bans at the local level. There's always those folks that want to cap THC. There's always those folks who want to overregulate products. And it drives me crazy because they're also the same folks who are always harping on less government intrusion into our lives. So what the fuck?
Well, first off, well-regulated does not mean over-regulated. That's one thing we have to understand. When you talk about a well-regulated bill, usually it's supposed to mean that it's regulated for the protection of the consumer or the patient or whatever, not for the protection of the job of the legislator that put the bill out in the first place. That's not well-regulated. Over-regulating only creates situations where people, like the chaos theory, will find a way to get around it. They will find a way to hack the law. And with all due respect to Carlos, all the alternate cannabinoids coming out of hemp right now are basically a symptom of the overregulation. It's not a bad thing because of the fact that they're making a lot of money for a lot of people. And as far as I know, they are safe. Although there's debate about that from the CBD Project and other places. But it just needs to get more research and more review. And you can't get more research and more review when you rush a product to market.
I say it very clearly. I say it time and time again, right? I will get out of the hemp business if I can get into the marijuana business. I have no problem saying that. That's why I'm here. I want to be in the marijuana business and can't.
Well, guys, this is your chance to help Carlos. Let's help Carlos get into the cannabis business. Let's help him change Chillum into a dispensary, into an MMTC.
Well, that goes back to the problem, Gary, is that with vertical integration being the rule of thumb that conservatives in Florida's government wants, it has created this space for people like Carlos Kent. Carlos would literally have to have been a nurseryman for 30 years prior to this. I mean, 30 years ago, Carlos was, busy trading baseball cards and and played in the backyard with his puppy.
I was playing Pong, actually.
What is it?
Pogs.
Pogs, yeah. with the big thumper, right? And the big one. Yeah.
And guys, I don't think that Carlos wants his own grow.
Here's the thing, though. It's like, I'm sorry, Gary, but here's the thing. I just want to clarify what Keno was saying. It's not for me to get the license to have the nursery. It's just to qualify. Yeah. So, I mean, even with that, I couldn't have gotten the license.
Well, let's go over the word access, because Chris made a very important point in regards to the fact that we have to increase safe and access to the product process. Well, access not only means that the store is close enough to you to drive within a day, as it was at the very beginning, but also that it's at a good price, and also that the product is not boof. Mm-hmm. Access to boof is not access to medicine. I don't care what the hell you say. If you're putting out minimal product just to have product out there, you have a quasi adult use program, and you don't have a medical program. Because medical use requires a safe, potent product. And if you have access to boof, you don't have that. You don't have access. Now, for instance, is the last couple of days, for you guys who really want a great deal on practically nothing, MedMen, the last store is in St. Petersburg that has not been changed over to Sunburn. Again, a terrible brand name. I'm sorry, Brady, but why name it after something that gives people sun cancer? Whatever. But that's you be you. But right now, it is 70% off now of all the MedMen products left in stock. Don't be surprised, though, if you ask for a 7-pack of pre-rolls and notice at the harvest date, is sometime last spring because they're trying to get rid of all their products. And so therefore clearance prices come with clearance quality. And so keep that in mind, guys.
Well said, Gary. Well said.
Yeah, this comment by DRS Metal kind of has a point. Maybe with all the people moving to Florida from New York, maybe all the people that are not enjoying the New Yorkers, we should just go to New York.
New York has had their fair share of problems too with the market, with the program. When you create a program with so many moving parts, something's bound to go wrong.
But wasn't it like they just opened the first legal dispensary?
Yeah, New York is still working on they just out who's getting the licenses. And they had a big crackdown recently in New York on folks. I mean, there were folks driving around with mobile dispensaries and stuff that got impounded and pulled over.
Well, the mayor was like, we're just gonna go ahead and let people smoke cannabis, right?
So in New York, you can smoke weed anywhere you can smoke a cigarette.
Right. So when they legalized, the mayor came out and said that, and it just left a lot of things to just be figured out. And entrepreneurship happened, and capitalism happened, and people started fucking selling it out of buses.
Now you also got the high maintenance guys, right? Like on the HBO show. Is it HBO? I think it is.
Yeah, I love that show. By the way,
he looks like you, only with a little bit more hair on the top.
Oh man, that's messed up. That's why I wear a hat. But no, I've always been intrigued by the New York marijuana system. Like even before anything got passed, they had these like pretty high tech like underground collectives going on, where a lot of marijuana was being sold illegally. And it always seemed to me that like whenever New York would legalize, something like that could happen very easy, where like it just like moved over. And in a way it did when people started like buying buses and shit like that. But sooner or later the government wants their cut, I guess.
The government
One other piece of interesting news this last week: the first large cannabis dispensary is opening up in Thailand this week.
Oh shit!
And our good buddy Gilbert Milam is the one who's heading the effort. He has the first cookie store is popping up in Thailand in January.
They're building a cookie store in Thailand?
Yep. So Asia is changing, and eventually Russia is going to have to change once they lose all their customers for their oil after we put enough goddamn sanctions on them to strangle the heck out of them.
Well, I find it interesting. I saw a video the other day. There's a guy in Thailand who was selling clones off the side of the road for $2. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah. There
are at least 20 at any dispensary in America at a minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting that if you look at all the laws in Florida, they don't say how the heck you get access to the product. How do you bring in product that's illegal to bring across state lines? Where do you get your clones? Where do you get your seeds?
Well, it just goes to show you that if you have enough money to donate to the powers that be, whether it's the governor or or people in the Senate or House in Florida, they'll look the other way. Where did the 5 original MMTCs get their seeds from? They didn't magically just pop up here in Florida, and if they did, then they were from the black market. They were from the legacy market. They weren't legally appropriated.
Is that 9-pound hammer was always legal?
Yeah, exactly. 9-pound hammer was. Yeah.
Let's go over the things we've had to deal with since the very beginning. We've had to deal with that 9-pound hammer. We had to deal with those white walnuts. Remember those little suckers, the little things. It's the only way you can possibly get access to Florida is by having somebody who shoved it into a ceramic canister, put a metal top on, you can easily pop off, or use a nutcracker or a one of those.
Is that how you did it?
To open up, just so you can find out how moldy the stuff is on the inside.
Oh man, the mold is the biggest thing that's always bothered me about what they're putting out of these Florida dispensaries, and it is really breaks my heart to think that there are sick people out there struggling with cancer who they're selling moldy booth to. Like, shame on you guys.
You have noticed that over the last couple of months we have had some new people entering the market. I mean, we got Sanctuary Medicinals who are coming online now, and they've got about 7 stores. Gold Leaf, hopefully, will come up soon. Revolution, hopefully, they'll come up soon. Cookies, we know he started in Miami. And they got the big processing plant they're going to do over on the West Coast. And there's a reason why we're suddenly getting these things is we're not getting licenses, folks. These are licenses around. Go ahead.
There's a Gold Leaf up the street here for me, right in Annapolis. And it is, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, as far as dispensaries go, it's like all glass. You can see inside from the street. They got heaters outside for when you're waiting in line outside. There's space heaters to keep you warm. So, I mean, I've seen and heard good things about them. So we'll see how that shakes out in Florida.
Well, I'll talk to those folks because their standard dispensary model architecturally is not legal in Florida because you can't see inside. It has that huge glass wall where you can look on inside. And in Florida, that's illegal. You have to have everything frosted over, belted over, possibly even like Harvest was doing for a while, just putting wood over all the windows.
And the question begs, why? Why? Is it for the kids? Because, I mean, what, you not want kids to know that they're legally selling weed? I'm confused.
Yeah, like they can't tell from all the neon signs outside that it's a cannabis shop.
Or all the smoke shops cannabis dispensary.
I don't get it. But I do want to switch gears real quick and talk about something positive that's happening. Following suit of President Biden, we've seen several governors issue out expungements or sign legislation that helps with that. And one in particular is Connecticut. The governor has announced that, as of January 1st, over 40,000 people with marijuana-related convictions will have their records fully or partially expunged. And that's because in Connecticut, when they passed their law regulating adult use cannabis market, it contained provisions for providing automatic review and expungement of prior convictions involving possession of cannabis up to 4 ounces. So, hey, I think Governor DeSantis, you want to run for president, get your shit together and pardon everybody in Florida who's been convicted, especially the fact that Florida has a 20-gram felony threshold. I mean, you can go to jail for having an ounce of weed in Florida and be hit with a felony, which can hit you up to 5 years. So please,
that's flower though. Concentrate
is the automatic go to jail card. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, as far as Ron DeSantis is concerned, he had one more clemency meeting was supposed to happen in the month of December before the new session takes over. All the new folks come in and all that other stuff, and he canceled it.
Wow!
And the main topic was expungements for people with possession. That was the topic of the meeting, and for that reason, program note: we're going to have Nikki Fried here next week to tell that because she was ready to fight for us on that basis.
Yes, I want to hear about how Ron DeSantis once again has fucked over the people of Florida when it comes to cannabis. Please tell us, Nikki, what is this guy thinking? Because I know he smokes the good shit.
Well, you need to tell him that smoking, not getting expunged is woke. Just tell him that, and maybe we'll get it done. Because I don't think he even knows what the word means.
Ron, you're asleep, man. You're asleep right now. And if you want to stay asleep, stay asleep. But, I mean, God damn. It was just
Ron, I know you're a devout Catholic. At least I heard anyway. Jesus was woke. Just so you know. Look it up.
Yeah. Well, Jesus will also be on the no-fly list, according to Ron's politics. What do you want me to say, Gary? He's a brown guy. He's a brown guy from one of those no-fly countries.
And he's constantly wearing dresses on almost every single picture I've ever seen of him. So he must be doing drag shows, right?
Nah, not gonna go there with you. But I will say that the Middle Eastern white Jesus in the tunic is definitely it's definitely.
Well, just saying. I mean, I've never seen Jesus in pants. I'm just saying, okay.
But he always has some nice Birkenstocks. I mean, if you're gonna walk 43s through the desert, you gotta have comfort on your feet, man.
And you have to have somebody to wash your feet afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Which helps out. We're not going to get too deep into that because I could go really off the deep end. But I prefer to do that for Carlos, and he's not here right now.
Well, Gary, that was something my wife and even some colleagues at work shared with me this week. They're like, Chris, sometimes you have information that is just so informative and at the same time so depressing. And it's something that it takes me back to what Morpheus said in the Matrix movie, is that at a certain point it's dangerous to wake certain minds up. So some people can't handle their thought paradigm in the world around them, their bubble being popped. They can't handle the illusions that they've built in their reality to come crashing down. And in that, one of the things that caused that was I was speaking to some of my colleagues about how our pension plan at work is invested in certain portfolios that put money into private prisons, that make money off of people being arrested for weed possession. And that, many people need to go back in this country and check their 401ks, to check their pensions and see, is it being invested in these certain indexes, in these certain funds that are heavily invested in these immigrant detention centers, in these private prisons. And so, oftentimes we go about our lives thinking that we're doing okay, but we're part of the problem because we don't pay attention to where we put our dollars. And in this country, your dollar is more powerful than your vote, because you only vote once every 2 years in this country, sometimes for city council and stuff, those things, but you vote every day with your dollars. And I think that's something that we have to really wake up and start to pay better attention to.
Now, when I worked for the Tobacco Control and Prevention Department of the Department of Health in the state of Florida, I complained about the fact that my pension was heavily invested in Atria. The former Philip Morris and also R.J. Reynolds. And my response back from the folks over there was, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make certain that trust fund that goes to pay your retirement and all that bit is well invested. And if these particular companies are bringing in a profit and therefore will maintain the value of your stock, we have an obligation to go ahead and invest in those. So the question is, where do the ethics lie? Towards the profit motive or towards the side effects of that profit motive? That's what it comes down to. And that's something to seriously consider. I wouldn't doubt that we have a lot of money that's involved right now in treatment programs that basically force people to go ahead and get into those treatment programs if they're caught with a half a gram of poof. I think some people are aware of that around here.
Yeah, I think that some people are very well aware of that.
Well, Gary, here's an interesting thing you touched on. You mentioned Philip Morris, R.J. Reynolds. Those companies have also bought many of our food products. Nabisco was bought by Philip Morris, R.J. Reynolds, and Philip Morris bought like General Mills cereal. So the same companies that have profited by putting out addictive substances, and now that people are have the truth campaign, because we don't call it woke, truth for the anti-tobacco campaign. So now that people understand the truth, they just pretty much switched gears, and now they're selling us poison through our food supply, through junk foods, through Oreos and everything else. I mean, the fact that Kraft singles in this country can't be labeled as cheese because they're not. They're a plastic product that's cheese flavored should drive you insane. But no, every day we just continue about our lives like that's totally normal.
You talk about prisoner swaps. You go back to the beginning of this country. We gave the indigenous folks cannabis by bringing in tons and tons of hemp seeds to go ahead and grow hemp in the United States. And what did they do? Well, besides the fact that we were basically killing them off in droves, they gave us tobacco. that was their fuck you to us. Say, we're going to give you a product that we already know is addictive, so we only use it for religious purposes. But you guys are going to go hog wild, and you won't be able to walk around without a cigarette hanging out of your mouth in about a couple hundred years.
Oh man, well, looking at talking about colonization and settlers and stuff, looking at the Midwest, Missouri legalization law has taken into effect. December 8th is when Amendment 3 went into effect. And so, over 20,000 annual marijuana arrests a year in Missouri will now end. And adults can legally now possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis, and soon will have the option to grow up to 18 plants or purchase cannabis products, from licensed retailers. So
Yeah, we have seen a lot of good improvements all across the country.
Yeah.
Missouri, Maryland, Oklahoma is even straightening things out. Oregon, Colorado, with adding mushrooms and things of that sort. And we have a lot of states that are really moving up. New Jersey, New York is fixing their program.
Yep. Missouri was one of the first prohibitionist states going back to 1889.
Yes. And what do we have in Florida? We're walking things backwards, slowly but surely. We are putting caps on. We are doing these rolling things that nobody can figure out, and they have no idea whether they can actually buy anything or not once they get to the dispensary. And that's basically all of it, because nobody really understands it enough. I wanted to get on our brand new commissioner of cannabis. However, because the other one, I think he had enough of it, and he went west. But right now they have a giant wall on him. They put him in on ivory tower. But I'm going to try to get him on to go ahead and explain himself and what he plans on doing with the program moving forward. Because right now we are not moving forward.
The OMMU in Florida has definitely been an agency that has been ineffective. Its leadership has consistently been ineffective, and we, have not seen the bold leadership needed to create a robust, patient-centric program. Whether that's been by design or by just political appointments that are inept, either way, doesn't work for the people.
I was overjoyed that when Harding got knocked out of the state legislature this last week, because he was part of that group that shouted down our bills. And you gotta love a guy like that who's so committed to his people, his constituents, that he totally ignores them.
Well, this is the same guy who sponsored the Don't Say Gay bill and who's now being under federal indictment for scamming, PPP loans and COVID relief funds. So
those were EIDL loans, actually.
There you
go. Those are the ones from the SBA, not from the banks. So he's got a lot of splaining to do. That haircut's a little bit too outrageous for me.
Well, look, it's overall, as we end this year out and look into how far we've come, 2022 has not been necessarily a bad year for cannabis. It's been a mixed bag. We've seen advancements. We've seen certain states move forward. We see the research bill moving forward. What we didn't see this year, which we hope to see in the next 2 years, is an actual descheduling bill coming out of Congress. Now, whether that because of the Republican House, it's going to be Nancy Mace's States Act. We hope we can have Representative Mace on later on, next year and have her on to talk about where that's going to be moving. Or is it going to be the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act moving out of the Senate? Now that Schumer, he has a solid majority, can we get that bill passed? Because we actually do something in regards to removing cannabis off the schedule. Once it's off the schedule, that's going to open up the floodgates for so much reform in so many other areas, whether it's in research or whether it's in banking, whether it's going to be in international treaties, because the United States is the trendsetter. As if people see the United States moving forward with legalization, there's going to be tons of other countries across the globe that are going to step up to the plate that have traditionally had cannabis as part of their culture. That's the other thing too about our nation's education system, is that one, it is so compartmentalized that when you go to college, you really only learn what you're trying to learn. But two, in the K through 12 system, they're not going to teach you things like the War of 1812 was directly related to, an embargo by the British to prevent an embargo by the French to prevent the British from getting access to Russian hemp, which was the lifeblood of the Imperial Navy. These are things that you're not going to learn in an 8th grade civics class. This is not the stuff that Ron DeSantis wants you to learn as part of his anti-woke agenda. That's for damn sure. And so understanding that there are countries on this planet like India who have had cannabis as part of their religion, as part of their culture for thousands of years, and yet it is illegal. And that makes no sense to me. And that is because, of course, our drug policies from the Nixon administration and Reagan administration through bodies like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, bad science and bad propaganda have made it international now. And so these shitty drug policies that we have, people want to blame Russia. But the fact is that Russia was one of the top producers of cannabis in the 19th century. So, are we really going to blame the Russians for Britney being detained? No, we should actually look at ourselves. If we want to know why Americans are detained in Russia for cannabis possession, it's because Americans have shitty cannabis policy, not because the Russians have an issue with cannabis.
You know what really knocked down Russia's economy? Nylon. Because they were the kings of hemp rope. And they were the ones who basically, like you said, the navies were all clamoring for Russian hemp for rope to go ahead and make their ships sail and things of that sort. Kind of like we rely on gas these days, if you think about it. And having a nylon rope transmit that, it changed everything. Now and then they had to go ahead and switch to oil, which is what they're doing right now, trying to keep us over that. We are not going to stand for this kind of economic terrorism. We will find a way to hack around that situation, and that's what we plan on doing. Now, as far as Florida is concerned, yeah, Florida Normal has plans. Maybe the other normal programs have plans to put on events and maybe sell some papers here and there. We have plans, legislative plans, to actually help you guys out, but we are going to need your help. We want to bring our bills to a legislature right now who basically doesn't even know us anymore, because almost all of our big champions like Brandis and Carlos Guillermo Smith won't be there when we get there this session. And that's important. We have to get a whole new crew of champions out there. And so we're going to need your help to go ahead and contact your representatives and tell them as constituents how you feel about the topics that we're trying to push forward. One of which I mentioned earlier is an expansion of qualifying conditions. Now, Normal doesn't like the idea that we're throwing out a huge long list. But the other option is to do what Oklahoma did and just say, if your doctor feels that you would benefit from cannabis use, then you can go ahead and have a card.
And that's exactly the policy that we need. Liberal, conservative, whatever you want to call the damn policy. The relationship is between the patient and their doctor, not the patient and the legislature. And so we need to talk to legislators and get them on board and realize that and step up to the plate. Not only do we need an expansion of qualifying conditions, but we need your support to help push forward for employment protections. People are still getting fired from their jobs, even though they're doing everything legally. That makes no sense in Florida.
And of course, patient protections. Right now, if you're using cannabis for your condition, be it Parkinson's or be it kidney failure, things of that sort, you go to the hospital and they will take your medicine away if they have a concern over their Medicaid funds coming in or their LIP funds coming in or whatever. We can't have that. We also can't have people getting bumped off the transplant list because they're using cannabis to survive right now.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that's happening in many times. We have a bill in regards to that as well. We have employee protection. We have patient protection. We have expansion of qualifying conditions. And we have a really big deal, reciprocity.
Yeah. And Gary, we have a new bill that we're pushing forward this session, parental rights.
That's
you
right.
Just touched on it. Go to the hospital. You talk about them taking away your treatment. They can take away your kids. Medical marijuana should not be used as an ammunition in family court or utilized by the powers that be to split up families. It's wrong. It's unacceptable. It's reprehensible.
There's a federal law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, which basically says that you have to have accommodations for people who have a disability. Well, if you have a disabling condition and you need to take medicine at home, you shouldn't have your kids taken away because you're taking the medicine that you need at home in order to survive, in order for you to get yourself back to work, whatever else you have to do. So we are working with the federal laws to make the state laws more palatable and to work for everybody. And so along with the patients, the parental rights situation as well, we also have a home grow bill as well, which will allow the creation of what I call these cultivation stations, where experts will help you grow your weed at home, and it's yours, not at home, but in these containers where they can help control the powdery mildew, the insects, and all the other things that plague any outdoor grows out here. So we can help you get good medicine if you need cannabis to use as good medicine. So these are the kind of things that we're going to be pushing forward again this year. We are going to need legislators to go ahead and push these bills and file these bills, and we're going to need you to push the legislators. And that's where it comes in for you to go ahead and join the movement and become a part of Suncoast Normal. the most politically active normal chapter in the state of Florida, and I'm proud to say that.
Indeed. And, Gary, recently our chapter was invited by the Pinellas County Public Library System and in conjunction with St. Pete College. And so we're actually going to be hosting a seminar on Wednesday, January 25th at 6:30 at the West Community Library at the St. Pete College Gibbs campus. And we're going to talk about the health benefits of medical marijuana. And folks can learn about how medical marijuana can help with anxiety, epilepsy, PTSD, Parkinson's, glaucoma, ALS, and other debilitating conditions. So this is free. This is something that your tax dollars, paid for. It's being sponsored by the Friends of the West Community Library. So we want to make sure that the taxpayers actually have access to a beneficial seminar that can teach them a lot, not just the same old reefer madness propaganda that folks have had to deal with for the past 80 years. So come on out. It'll be a great time, and I'm sure folks will learn a lot about how medical cannabis can benefit them in their lives.
Is the library going to allow us to have vendors there?
No, this is going to be strictly a community education event. This is not an industry event. This is not for MMTCs to try and make an extra buck or get more clients. This is all about people just coming out and wanting to learn about how medical cannabis can make a difference in their life.
I like this.
Well, I like to go there. That sounds like fun.
I'm excited for us to do it. And I just want to see more of these type of things happening at the local level. More, folks have a lot of complaints right now about what happens at the libraries. Apparently, there's folks have issue with drag queen story hour. If you're one of those conservative Republicans who have issues with that, then book us for a seminar, and we'll come in and we'll educate folks. And I will not do it in a dress if it makes you feel better.
And by the way, drag queens, they're woke. So be careful,
I will do it in a dress if you want me to, though.
Carlos will do it in a dress, no problem. So hey, you know what? We'll compromise. I'll do it in a kilt, just balls out from the waist down, right?
Nice, nice.
Balls out or knives out, one of the two.
Oh man, look, the fact is that we need more community programming. So if you have a civic group, if you have a community organization, if you want to learn more, we're happy to get myself, Gary, or Carlos out there to educate you all. Carlos, there's a little bit of psychedelic education that you got brewing. You want to share a little bit about that, or is that still in the process?
It's still in the works, but essentially this week us here at Chillum got a wake-up call on like how much education is needed for psychedelics. The Department of Agriculture has put a stop sale on the Amanita muscaria mushroom. We can't play Mario Kart anymore. Yeah, so but we should learn about the pleasures of playing Mario Kart, and especially the pleasures of that mushroom that are in Mario Kart. And we're gonna start a website called Learn Euphoria that's gonna offer cannabis and psychedelic education. And we're also going to be offering the Amanita muscaria mushroom on there for educational purposes only.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So here's the deal: that when God created the earth, He also put down cures for all the crap that He also put on the earth to go ahead and fix it, just to make certain. But we have to search it out, and we have to accept the fact that there's something in nature that treats things. Isn't that right, Carlos?
Right. Right. Sure. Whatever.
Nature's own.
As long as we can do mushrooms, believe whatever you want.
I just want to, for those who don't know, or maybe this is your first time tuning in, we have three different faith groups represented between the three of us. Me being the traditional Catholic, Gary being of a Jewish faith, and Carlos, of course, being the well-educated person with a degree in religion who has said that all religions are bullshit. So.
And he looks like a rabbi.
It's actually the degree in business that causes me to realize that all religions are bullshit.
Well, it's because religion is a business, and then you realize that business is a bullshit, right?
All right, so here's a poll. Does Carlos look more like a rabbi or like a Greek Orthodox priest?
Oh, I'm voting for Orthodox. He definitely looks like the patriarch of Moscow.
Just the wrong hat. Those guys wear dresses too. I'm just saying.
There was and this rabbi in Denver that got arrested like pretty hardcore recently because he was he was offering psilocybin therapies. And he's like repealing his whole thing because of the new laws that came through and saying that it was for like a spiritual purpose.
Huh.
So we'll see. We'll see if the rabbi gets it through. If the he sets a precedence for rabbis using mushrooms for spiritual purposes. Is there anything like that before, Gary? Or I'm not sure.
I don't know of anything of that, but it sounds like a forward move. I mean, anything that brings people to the table so they can listen, I think is a good thing. That you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him think, right?
Right.
Well, that's basically what we're coming from.
Well, for our Protestant evangelical Christian friends who say weed is the devil's lettuce, I just want to quote God in Genesis 1:29. And the Almighty said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food." And so, and believe it or not, hemp seed is one of the superfoods that you can get at the grocery store. So, how can I grow a plant that is the devil's lettuce when clearly God said he put it here for us?
Yeah, I don't think Jesus could get where he was without rocking the ganj. And, I think it's in the Bible in more ways than one. I think saying Jesus Christ is the Most High, that's proves something.
Well, I will say this much. He was a small business owner as a carpenter. And as we know, you have to have disposable income to buy the good shit. Because, you can't, if you're a working class guy, all you can do is get those nickel bags. But Jesus had the disposable income. He had 12 homies all pulling the money together. I mean, come on. They had to be
most of them were out fishing most of the time.
Hey, Judas was holding the sack. So,
That's because he's wearing a kilt. This is one,
Hey, look,
okay.
We we've gotten hell in the past, but look, no, we don't mean to offend anyone's religion. Well, Carlos does, but we don't, And so, as we make levity in light of these situations, we really want to point out that there is a great hypocrisy in the talking points behind cannabis prohibition, behind prohibition in general. For me, I am a big advocate that God gave us free will, and the government should not be tamping down on that free will beyond the basic commandments. There are 10 commandments, and in them 10, I didn't see anywhere in there where it says thou should not smoke the good shit, But I will say there should be an 11th that says thou should not sell me any booth. That would be the ideal one.
Yeah, let's turn it up to 11. Absolutely.
Well, the Egyptians had 42. I think they need to add a 40, maybe somewhere in those 42 declarations. I've not sold anyone booth before.
All right, guys.
Anyway, we got to get our word out there. We've got to get more viewership. We have to have better production values because it can't all be coming directly from Carlos's head, although he does a damn good job.
Yes. So please support our Patreon. Carlos, run that link to the Patreon.
You're not here, Gary, but I actually got the Ethernet wired.
Nice.
Oh, fantastic.
No more internet
disruption. Is our Patreon.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for my car, I'd be there today. So
no, I want to run this by you guys. Yes, we need to support the Patreon, but before we get into all the commercials and everything, there's this person that works with Double Blind Magazine that reached out to me that teaches some of their classes, and this person, her name is Skyweaver. But Skyweaver, one of the things that she does is she holds, how there's mushroom ceremonies, ayahuasca ceremonies. She holds ceremonies very similar to this, but with cannabis use.
Mm.
And I was thinking maybe we could get the 3 faiths that we have together, or the 2 faiths and 1 lack of faith together, and and have ourselves a little ceremony.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'll be in town in January. We should book it that weekend. I'm in town.
I think she's here in January. I think we got a normal event coming up and probably in our backyard here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it has a backyard vibe. That's good.
That does sound good. All right.
subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can go ahead and get so people can know just how many people are actually watching us. We got some great shows coming up for you. We got some great people who are going to be coming on to listen to. Now that we're past the elections, we can start getting past that politics and get into the other politics of kind of making things work and kind of getting bills to get put through and fix the program, which right now could probably just be scrapped and start all over again, but that would cost too much. So we're at that situation. Subscribe, become a patron, and of course, become a member. Because when we get down to Tallahassee, which we're going to do when it gets close to the session, we're going to start meeting some champions and start moving things forward. And we want you to be part of that.
Indeed. And if you are someone who is googly inclined, go to your local legislative delegation for your county, whether it's Hillsborough, Orange, Pinellas, Miami-Dade. Find out when your county legislative delegation is meeting. Sign up to that and go talk to the folks at your home county and tell them you want them to go to Tallahassee and pass cannabis reform legislation, whether it's the employment protections, patient protections, whether it's parental rights, whether it's expansive qualifying conditions, reciprocity, home grow, all the great bills that Gary has taken the time to push through, write, and help co-sponsor and co-author. We need your support to do that. So at a grassroots level, we need you going to hold your county level delegations accountable for what they're doing in Tallahassee.
And check out the archives of a lot of these other shows. We've had a lot of great information, especially when we had Paul Armentano on the other day, as well as Morgan Fox, our political director for Suncoast for all of Normal over here in the country. And they those guys over in Tallahassee, not Tallahassee, DC, tell us that we have one of the best legislative agendas of any Normal chapter in the country. So let's make it happen, guys. I'm going to throw out one more thing that's got to probably blow your mind religiously. Don't get angry at us. Well, if you want to, that's fine too. Just think about for a second. If the Romans did not use the cross as their main method of public execution, and they decided to use hangman's noose instead, would we no longer be praying to the cross but be praying to the noose? Is that going to cause too much controversy?
What if the noose was made out of hemp rope?
Wow. Now that just blew my mind. Absolutely.
And on that note, bye guys. Thanks for watching.